Yo, what's up, guys? It's Nathan here. Today, I want to talk to you about automation. In particular, I'm going to give you just a very kind of simple strategy that you can use immediately to create movement and flow in your tracks so that, one of the problems that people run into when they're making tracks is that, you get a loop out and then you probably duplicate it and you get something of an arrangement. And then you feel like you keep needing to add like more and more instruments because you're lacking this kind of evolution of your track, this kind of movement, when really you actually don't need to add more tracks. What you should do is add more automation. And I'm going to show you the specific two things that you'll find that you automate the most at a basic level that will automatically put your track up above the rest. I mean, simply put, it's just so simple that you should be doing it all the time. If you don't know what to automate, just automate these two things and your track is going to really start to just develop into something beautiful. So, the two things I'm talking about are filter automation and gain automation. Now, when it comes to electronic music, or any music for that matter, there's almost always some kind of element that is starting in the back and it's quiet, and then it moves up forward, or it comes and goes. There's some kind of movement. The idea is to just create any kind of movement. Something can come in, then go back out. It can come in and stay. It can come in quickly, intermittently, and then fade away. It can be loud in the back and then come up in the front and be quiet. So I'm going to show you, just like the basics to this, because I do this all the time in my tracks. Like this accounts for about 80 to 90% of the automation I do. If you guys are used to doing like wavetable automation as well, that's an entirely cool thing too. But if you can't get the basics down with this stuff, just automating your filters and your gain, then you're gonna have a ball when you get to wavetable automation. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna show you this track without automation, enabled on just two elements that are creating the movement that I'm talking about. And this is a track I worked on ages ago. I never completed it because I just didn't, but it's going to eventually show up in our Finish a Song series because it's got so much potential. So we have two elements here, which I'm actually going to move them closer together so you can see the automation. Well, unfortunately, that's not going to happen. But so anyway, so pretty much we've got this pluck sound, which we're actually going to play first so that you can just hear it. And then there's this pad element. Okay, so right now there's no movement or anything happening. These things are just static. They're not going to change. And we're going to play through to we're going to play about 16 bars through. And you'll just kind of notice there's nothing going on. There's nothing changing. And then when I just automate these two things, this pluck sound, which comes in a little bit later, as well as this pad, it creates this really cool movement that allows the things that suddenly come in to just grab your attention. So let's have a listen through and, get a feel for what's going on. Okay, so, it's a little bit weird sounding because when you take the automation away, you take the levels that I had set for everything to be at, you take those away too. So, So really what's going to happen here is we're going to play back through and we're going to have the automation enabled. And just for starters, we're going to focus on this pad. This pad, the filter is going to start closed and then it's going to open up. And it's just, the drop and it opens up. You're going to see the filter open up and the sound's going to come in, getting louder and louder and louder. And it's just a simple rise in, but it creates just enough of a change that you feel like there's progress happening. And then when this pluck comes in, the pluck will start actually kind of subconsciously, and then it will get louder as it goes into this part. So just notice how these two things kind of starting in the background and then coming in creates movement in transition into each kind of verse, part, whatever it is. I haven't decided yet. So let's just listen through now that we have movement. So it's pretty cool. Like you have just things coming and going. This pad is obviously the kind of main, it's like a pad / chord. It's the main driving force. The rest of your, building of the track should be in response to how that chord is coming and going. Otherwise you just get a bunch of like disparate elements. So obviously when this chord goes away, something might come in. That's totally subjective what you do there. Now, again, I've done the same thing up here. I have some percussion that comes in, and I've just done weird filter automation where it comes in, comes out, and we'll listen to it. It creates kind of sucking, whooshing sound. And then if I remove the filter that's automating, it just sounds like this. So if we play it with the whole track, if we just play it, without that, we'll hear this. So it's really cool. I mean, I personally, I love just automating filters up and down. It creates movement really simply. And then, as you get a feel for what automating a low or high pass filter, or rather a high cut filter or a low pass filter. Yeah. High cut filter or a low pass filter. When you get familiar with that, then your brain starts to be like, okay, all right, I get this. Now that I'm familiar with this, I think I'm going to branch somewhere else. And then you can start doing like wave table automation. The next obvious ones are like pitch bend automation, which you can do very dramatically and also very subtly. The sky's the limit with automation. If you have an 8-bar loop or just something looping in your track and it just feels kind of static, there's a lack of movement, just start automating things. Especially if you feel like, man, I have so much stuff here. I feel like it's enough, but then you get that kind of like urge to add something else to create more movement, but you don't need to do that. You just actually create movement by taking the elements you already have and automating them. Automation is something that, a lot of people that I've spoken to who are starting out, they at some point they'll forget that they can automate. They'll just start relying on very kind of blocky style music, which is, I suppose, is a little bit like pop music. But if you listen to pop music, there's automation. It's just a lot more subtle. So, I just want you guys to keep that in mind. Automation is a very important thing. If you can't come up with any ideas instrumentally, I would strongly suggest that you start fooling around with just some frequency automation and some gain automation. That it just allows you to create movement. It's really cool, and it's a very simple way to get inspiration. And you'll often find like, wow, this sounds really great. This is a good thing, that I've got here. And then you'll go back to maybe adding an instrument part, maybe adding effects, because everything influences everything else in your track. When you make a move over here, it comes up with an idea over there. It just goes back and forth. If you approach your music in a very linear way where it's like, okay, I gotta start here and then I gotta finish this part first and then I can do this part, aside from the fact that that sometimes works, it can become the strategy that starts to strangle your creativity. It starts to actually torture you because you really want to get to this part over here, but this part isn't ready yet. But that's just not how it works. The creative process is nonlinear. So you should give yourself the freedom to jump around, give yourself the freedom to use automation however you want. Anyway, guys, so I hope that was helpful. Let me know if you have any questions. You know where to leave them. And I'll be making another tutorial here, see what we can't come up with. And see you guys around.